Hello, welcome to another episode of Grand Classroom's COVID mitigation plan. My name is David Henley. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Grand Classroom, and we've been going around talking to different segments of our tours and the vendors that we work with to ensure that each one of them is taking the necessary steps to ensure our safety when we're on tour and letting them describe their safety protocols and practices in this age of COVID. And today we've got Tim Krepp here, and he's going to be talking to us about the way it's going to look when we're on the ground from a guide perspective. So Tim, you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and your background?
Sure, Dave. Thanks for having me on here again. My name is Tim Krepp. I work for Grand Classroom as the Guide and Motorcoach Manager. I understand we've discussed the Motorcoach aspect elsewhere. So let's today focus a bit on the guide picture and how that's going to work on the day-to-day tour portion of the tour. So as I mentioned, I manage the guides. I was one for about 15 years or so. I'm based here in Washington, D.C., where a good chunk of Grand Classroom's tours do go. But I've worked all the way up and down the East Coast through Boston, New York, up in the Adirondack Mountains a little bit, all the way down to Richmond, Shenandoah Valley, that area as well. So taking groups from camping all the way to Times Square and a lot of places in between. And now I have stepped back from that a little bit and I manage others during that process.
Yeah, great. We're happy to have you. You've been a great resource. So can you tell everyone how is the tour experience going to be different from what it would look like before COVID? Are there things that we're going to have to miss out on or anything like that?
A, I don't know, and B, almost certainly. So it is going to be different. Everything is going to be different, I'm sure. As we work our way through that, let's just pause for a second. There's going to be a point where we do have this solved and a vaccine. I think at that point, things will go to something approaching what it was like beforehand. But let's talk about that interim period where we're starting to safely run tours, but yet we're still social distancing, we're still wearing masks, things like that. So it's going to be a very fluid situation. We're going to try some things out. We as a country are going to try some things out. They may not pan out so well. We might have to pull back on it. So I think the biggest thing, without getting any specifics of any destinations or locations, is some mental and some physical and some just emotional flexibility for all of our participants and all of us that work in Grand Classroom.
Yeah, for sure. So will guides be able to make adjustments on the fly in their itineraries as we encounter some of these adjustments? Absolutely.
In fact, they're going to have to. We don't know. This isn't new for COVID. This has been something we've always done, and we've taken great pride at Grand Classroom of having flexible, empowered guides that know the destination like the back of their hands, that often live at that specific spot or have been there for years, sometimes even decades, that are showing you, the customer, their hometown or some natural park that they love, that they've been visiting for years. So we've always been having to adjust on the fly. There may be a rainstorm at some place, or maybe here in Washington, D.C., we have the presidential motorcade going by, so we have to adjust. So we've always been having to do that. Itineraries are always flexible, and we always work with the customer to adjust those. So this will be one more complication in a field where we're very used to dealing with complications. So we're looking for communication from our customers, letting us know what's important to you. We're trying to, having to schedule things to balance priorities. What is the must-see? How we like to get it in here? What are those undiscovered treasures that you might not necessarily see in a normal year, but because of things being more fluid this year, might be a better chance to get that in as we go along.
Yeah. What about some of the nuts and bolts of how it's actually going to work? Are groups going to be required to wear masks? Are there going to be accommodations made for hand washing, sanitizing, wipes, and things like that?
I think we should all plan on wearing masks at all indoor destinations. If you are inside a building, if there's a roof over your head, plan on having a mask. That's probably going to include the bus, depending on the spacing and the area on the bus. We don't want to be the last thing any of us want is, well, obviously for any of us to get ill, but to be the vector, to be the spread of that disease, to contribute further to this national problem. We want to be all in the business of tamping this down. So we're going to do our own socially responsible part of wearing our masks whenever we're on that tour. Now, one thing that we love at Grand Classroom is that we like to get kids outside. We like to get groups outside. So we're going to build that work with your account managers to build that into our tours as much as possible. So when you're outside, it's going to be a different scenario. When you're out in the Shenandoah doing an outdoor day or rafting on the river or walking amongst the memorials, depending on how the crowds are, depending on how we are, we're going to explore trying to have those masks off as much as possible to explore some outdoor space. So on those areas, we're going to try to work with that a lot as much as possible. But when you're inside, eating is going to be something we're going to be working with. Hotels will be something we're going to work with. Other than that, we're probably wearing a mask just about all the time.
Right. Great.
And you did ask about hand sanitizer, other hand washing. As the CDC and your doctor and everyone else has told you, hand washing, hand sanitization is very important. We're going to be working with our Motorcoach partners to clean those buses, to get them cleaned as often as possible. Most of the motor coaches will have hand sanitizer. If they don't, we'll make sure that we do. So your motor coach will have hand sanitizer on board. We'll try to use that every time we get on and off the bus, just to minimize that transmission of this disease, where we may have coughed on something, trying to cut that down. And one of the even more effective than hand sanitizer is, of course, washing our hands with soap and water. I mean, it sounds a little counterintuitive to some of us that want a nice chemical to wash it, but the CDC recommends that we wash our hands as often as possible. So before we leave the hotel in the morning, before and after we eat meals, whenever we get to a restroom, we're going to pause to spend 15 minutes or so, making sure everyone has a chance to really wash your hands. It's going to be a little bit like, those of us that are parents are really used to, so did you wash your hands? But we're going to make sure we spend that time. So maybe your itineraries are a little less jam-packed than we saw last year, or we'll see the year after. But we want to build some time in there to make sure everyone is safe and not spreading the disease. Yeah,
rightly so. So how are you going to ensure that the guides are getting tested? And what if a guide gets sick? Well, what's the plan there?
Sure. That's going to be a very difficult situation, just the nature of our healthcare system and all that stuff. But we are going to make sure our guides get tested as frequently as their healthcare, wherever they live. I know here in Washington, D.C., we have free public health testing, so our DC guides will be stationed. We'll be able to take care of that. Some of our other places, we'll have to see how we can do that, but we will have a testing regime. And more importantly, and this has always been a challenge for everyone, we want to set the standard among our guides that they are not to be, if they have the symptoms, if they have any symptoms, is to go ahead and take the day off. We're going to take care of you. We don't want to worry about them, but that we'll have someone else step in. So we may overstaff some of our tours. One thing that we're looking at on, say, a full bus of 45 people is having an extra day guide that steps in to help break those groups up. So rather than having one giant group of 40, we walk them around, maybe we break it up into 2 groups of 20 or even 3 groups of 15, something like that. So that gives us a little bit of flexibility with those groups, but it also gives us some redundancy, some extra backup, so that other guy can step in, help out for a day or two if we have an unexpected illness, things like that, which may not be turned to be COVID, but whatever it is, we don't want to be spreading the cold around either right now. So we're going to work with that. We have a little bit extra staffing than we would in normal times to help accommodate that.
Yeah, that sounds good. As I've expressed in some of these other chats with some of our other partners, this is such a fluid situation, and we're still learning. And some of these protocols may look a little bit different than when you're actually on tour than what we're going through right now. But everything is evolving, and we're trying to stay abreast of it and staying in front of it and things like that. And in light of that, where can people go if they have additional questions or they still have some concerns? Who can they contact here at Grand Classroom?
Sure. As always, your best contact at Grand Classroom is your account manager. They are the experts on your tour. They know exactly where you're going, what you're planning to do. I'm in close contact. I know you are in close contact with all of our account managers, making sure that we feed them information about what's closed, what's opening, what's going on. That happens in the normal course of business, but it's more so right now. So the account manager is someone you really want to talk to, really want to close. I want to talk about the itinerary for just a second. You may not see the things that you saw all the time or you want to see, but there's never going to be downtime. There's always so much to see here on any of our tours, Grand Canyon, Yosemite, Washington, D.C., wherever you're going, there's so much to see. So it might be different, it might not be expected, but there's not going to be downtime. And working with your account manager ahead of time and then with your guide on the road to work with that is going to be key. If you have questions that your account manager can put in touch with, if you want to just talk directly to me about some of the site-specific things, your account manager can always put them in touch with me, Tim Krepp at grandclassroom.com, but they can talk to me as well.
That's great. Well, Tim, we certainly appreciate all the time. I feel good about where we're going. I'm looking forward to getting groups back out on the road, and man, can't wait for this to be behind us.
We're all hungry to get back on the road ourselves.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, take care.